After spending over £1 billion on player acquisitions, it looks like the financial fair play rules are about to catch up with Chelsea. Yes, today we will be discussing Chelsea's financial troubles or looming financial troubles ahead of this year's summer. Welcome back to the Football Tribe YouTube channel. Robert K. Sarkos is my name. As you've all heard in recent days, and news from the footballing world, especially in the Premier League, have been dominated by Chelsea's financial troubles, not to mention those of Manchester City. But today, our focus will be on Chelsea Football Club. For those that care to remember, in May 2022, Todd Bowley's led consortium completed the acquisition of Chelsea Football Club in a deal that was valued at £4.25 billion. This was approved after Todd Bowley's consortium gave guarantees to the UK government that former owner Romano Abramovich would not be getting a single penny or would not be benefiting from the sale of Chelsea, that the proceeds from this sale would be held in a UK bank-based account and then give until when the UK government is convinced that the proceeds were going to be dedicated to humanitarian causes in the Ukraine. Now, Todd Bowley's takeover of Chelsea put an end to Roman Abramovich's 19-year-old ownership of the club. He did buy the club back in 2003, and during that spell, they went on to win 21 major trophies, which included 2 UEFA Champions League titles. That was, of course, in 2021, and their first coming in 2012 when they beat up against Bayern Munich in that final. So, ever since that takeover, Todd Bowley and his colleagues went on a spending spree in player acquisitions, and they did spend a lot of money, because I do remember Sam Jordan on TalkSport trying to justify all the money and how financial fair play rules would not catch up with them because all their costs or expenses for these player acquisitions had been spread over a long period of time. This was the first time we were hearing players putting pen to paper on 7-year contracts, 8.5-year contracts, 6-year contracts, and all those things. During that time, they acquired players like Wesley Fofana, the defender from Leicester City. They did acquire players like Mykhailo Mudryk from Shakhtar Donetsk in a deal that was over €100 million. They did acquire players like Moises Caicedo in a deal that was about £115 million. Players like Malo Gusto, Nicolas Jackson, Robert Sanchez, and all those kinds of players. Of course, Cole Palmer from Manchester City in a deal that was about £45 million. They went on a spending spree. Enzo Fernandez in a deal way worth over €112 million. So they acquired all these players to try and build a team because they were committed to investing in the club. As well intentioned as that was, it looks like the financial fair play rules are catching up with them. As we speak, Chelsea need to make at least £100 million before the end of June to be on the right side of the financial fair play rules. That's of UEFA. Now, one would think that £100 million is easy to make because Chelsea do have the players that they can sell to acquire that money. But also remember, clubs are not going to be in a rush to give Chelsea money just to acquire those players and save them from these charges of flouting the financial fair play rules. In any case, it is these very clubs that have been making the noise to the likes of UEFA and the Premier League of how Chelsea has come into rules and how are they not breaching financial fair play rules. So that sort of puts Chelsea in a very difficult spot to try and raise that money, £100 million, before the end of June this year. Of course, as a solution, what has been largely discussed is the potential sale of what are considered to be homegrown players or players that have come straight from the Chelsea's academy or that they acquired at a very, very young age, that then they are considered homegrown players. And one of the loudest names that has been mentioned largely in the papers or in the media in that regard is their midfielder in Conor Gallagher. If all of you remember, Conor Gallagher did have a loan spell with Crystal Palace during the charges of Patrick Vieira there in his first season before he was sacked in the following season. and then replaced by Roy Hodgson, who has since resigned. But anyway, so Conor Gallagher, remember he was a summer target for Tottenham Hotspur, and then in January, there was speculation of links leading him to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but of course it did not materialize. Chelsea managed to keep a hold of him in a deal that was expected to be worth about 40 to 50 million pounds. But of course it didn't happen. But now he is one of the players they are considering to sell. Not that they would want to sell him per se, and in fact, Chelsea fans have threatened that they will go on strike should the club sell Conor Gallagher. Unfortunately for the fans, this may be out of their hands or even their influence. Why? Because Chelsea do need to raise that money, and Conor Gallagher, being considered a homegrown player, is one single player that can help them raise at least 40 to 50 million pounds before June 30th. This is also to note that he will be entering into the final year of his contract. Therefore, clubs will not be eager to come and buy him as much as they may be interested in him, because being so eager and coming in quick, you'll be giving Chelsea what they want in terms of trying to save them from these financial fair play rules. That means those clubs that are interested in that player may want to strong arm Chelsea before that June 30th deadline to try and buy him for cheaper. Whereas players in the final years of their contract have commanded up to £100 million. We saw that in the incident of Declan Rice from West Ham to Arsenal. We've had speculation about Ivan Toney, who is also entering the final year of his contract, that Brentford would want a fee in the region of £80 million. We've had similar reports, although Real Madrid are not willing to pay as that much, that Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich, although they are still trying to convince him to sign a long-term contract with the club, should that fail, of course, it has been largely reported that his dream is to play for Real Madrid, but Real Madrid have expressed an unwillingness to pay as much as 60 million euros or even 70 or even 55 for a player that will be entering the final year of his contract. So clearly, this Chelsea may find themselves in a similar spot, that clubs may not be willing to overpay for a player, not because he lacks the quality or that edge is not on his side, but simply because the timelines are not suited to Chelsea. In fact, the timelines do favor the buying club. So there's that. And then, of course, on some of the players they have acquired, all the money they spent on this squad, the squad has not been an instant hit as they had imagined things, because they had, I believe, or I would want to believe that they had imagined an environment where they invest so much money into this squad, getting the likes of Marco Cucurella for about £65 million from Brighton, the left back, and many of these players have suffered long-term injuries, been in and out of the team. The team has been total chaos. Of course, at the genesis of all this mutual revelation was Thomas Tuchel as manager. He has since been let go of that role, and then they brought in Graham Potter, who was also sacked. We saw Frank Lampard return to Chelsea to steer them through the end of last season. That didn't work out. They were losing game after game. And then, of course, this season, they brought in Mauricio Pochettino. And we have all seen the kind of team that Chelsea have been. They are 11th on the Premier League table. So clearly it's not been an instant success for most of the players they've signed. As much as many of them are showing very many positive signs, the likes of Malo Gusto, who has recorded 8 assists to his name this season, the likes of Romeo Lavia, who was acquired from Southampton in a deal that was about £50 million, has hardly kicked a ball in this Chelsea team. So some of these players are not players that they can even resell and recoup the money that they spent on them, because they've not been a hit. Whereas you acquired Moises Caicedo for £115 million, it's very unlikely that a club would come and even pay Chelsea £100 million for the same player just after one season. Mikhailo Mudryk, I doubt that with all the overwhelming interest that Arsenal had in the player, that they would be willing to come and pay any fee above 85 million euros, not even 80 million euros for the same player just after a year and a half into his Chelsea spell. So clearly, the option of selling players that they have recently acquired does not seem very promising, and yet they need to raise £100 million. Strikers like Adam Broja there, who is on loan to Fulham, he does have a buyout clause of about £40 million. But to be honest, no same team is going to pay £40 million for a striker like Broja. He's more often injured than not. He's gone to Fulham. I don't know how many games he's managed to play. So that's the kind of player. He's not a hot cake in any case. So clearly, the financial fair play rules may be catching up with Chelsea. And to make matters worse is that the next season they won't be having a shirt sponsor. Not that they won't get one, but at least the one they have in United Athlete, they did sign a deal of only 1 year, and according to football financial expert, that is Stefan Bosson, he says that deal in itself was questionable because it was a deal reported to be around $50 million, and reports do suggest that the company does not have that much money to invest in such a deal for just 1 year. So there are questions over that deal. The other thing to mention is that because Chelsea's investments have not hit an instant repay, they're going to be out of European competition or out of European football. More importantly, the UEFA Champions League. So that means their revenues are going to be further impacted. They won't be making as much money as they had hoped they would be able to make. Because they had hoped, let's invest in a very good squad, good players, the Enzo Fernandez of this world, the Nicholas Jacksons, not that he's a top player, but he is a decent player. Mukalo Mudrik, Paul Palmer, and all those, the way we've mentioned them, that these are players that would be able to help Chelsea, be a competitive team, qualify for the UEFA Champions League, where they can then make some money and, recoup some of that investment back and have their books in order. But it's not likely. They won't even qualify for the Europa League unless they do go ahead and win the FA Cup. So that's the kind of pressure that Mauricio Pochettino does find himself in. Should they fail to win the FA Cup because they do face Manchester City in the semi-finals, that means they won't even qualify for the Europa League. That means they will be losing out on money they would have made should they qualify for the Europa League or UEFA Champions League. And even if they were able to qualify for the Europa League, we all know that the Europa League revenues are quite very low, because at the end of it all, if they do go far, they will make about £25 million or not more than £40 million throughout the season. So just out of the Europa League channel. So clearly, it doesn't pay off that much, So that's kind of the trouble they do find themselves in. And then Chelsea, by their own admissions, have questionable payments that were made in transfer deals during the era of Romano Abramovich. It is Chelsea that admitted to these, off-the-book payments in deals of the likes of Eden Hazard when he was joining Chelsea, in deals of a player like William Borges da Silva. So there's that. They did report it to the authorities that there were some off-the-book payments that were made. Now, just because they did report themselves or admitted to these dealings, that does not relieve the entity of Chelsea of these financial misbehaviors. Whereas these were misbehaviors or financial dealings carried out by the old regime, it leaves all the liability remains with Chelsea as a club. So there's also that, and that's a matter that has yet to be investigated and reach a logical conclusion. So clearly, there's a lot of factors going around Chelsea as far as their finances are concerned. Now, the most important thing for Chelsea is to try everything possible, try and pull out a rabbit of their pocket and raise at least £100 million to have their books in order, at least as far as this year is concerned. That's before June 30th. Now, according to football financial expert Stefan Bosson, he does say that when the season ends and clubs begin trading players or negotiating deals, is that they can negotiate deals within June and then have those submitted, even though they may not be concluded, and they are concluded later in July, because then football authorities can consider them as deals that discussed and discussed in June, and therefore it is money brought into June, but only that time did not allow the club to conclude the transaction or the deal as fast as they would have loved. Now, of course, that's a consideration, but again, that's up to the authorities to sort of determine where they draw the line in this whole thing. So clearly, for all the other clubs that have been making noise about Chelsea's overspending, the way they've gone about the transfers, the way they bloated the market with all the expenditure they put in, clearly it's beginning to catch up with them. There is a looming threat on Chelsea's finances with the financial fair play rules about to catch up with them. Probably, rival fans will be excited about this because it's the first of its kind. There was a loophole that Chelsea did exploit in the rules of the game. That's how they managed to have players signed on contracts of about 8 years and 6 years and 7 years and those kinds of things. And since then, UEFA have amended these rules to say that a player cannot go sign a contract beyond 5 years, at least to the best of my knowledge. So, whereas those rules have been amended, nothing has been amended to favor Chelsea as far as having their books balanced is concerned. So that's it. That is the looming financial situation with Chelsea Football Club. Do let me know what your thoughts are, whether you do think that Chelsea deserve to pay for their own financial misdeeds, or they will be able to pull it off and save themselves from any penalties that could face them. Of course, this conversation also does involve Manchester City, but Manchester City's problems are much bigger because they do have pending charges or that are about 115 charges that need to be looked into, whereas they will have their day in court and everybody seems to complain, or we all seem to be concerned that how come these are taking far too long to be brought to book. Well, their time will come eventually. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but eventually they'll have their day in court. So, but for now, that's the financial situation with Chelsea Football Club. Do let me know what your thoughts are on this situation. If you're a Chelsea fan, I'll be really interested in hearing from you through the comment section what you think and where this leaves your club. The Chelsea fans in England have already expressed their detest for Tony Bowley and the club's management of how they've gone about some of these situations. But it is what it is. They'll have to deal with it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Robert K. Circles once again. Do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we can keep going. Have a blessed evening. I'll see you next time.